Go.
Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Zoom Action, KSR's basketball film breakdown show. As always, we've got our two co-hosts, myself, Zack Geoghegan, joined on my left by Brandon Ramsey, KSR's resident basketball mind, our coach in the seat over there. So we have a fun episode. We're actually going to talk about some positive stuff today, Brandon. I know it's felt like a while since we've been able to do that, probably since like the Indiana game or the St. John's game that we've actually been able to talk about some fun. So let's do it. Kentucky is coming off a 24-point win over Mississippi State on Saturday. It was Kentucky's first SEC win of the season after the late game collapse against Missouri that we saw back on Wednesday. So yes, Kentucky started off slow, another 12-point hole, like 8 minutes into the game. They were down 10 halfway through the first half. And then they outscore Mississippi State like by 35 points for the final 35 minutes or whatever it was. The final 30 minutes of that game saw like just kind of a renewed sense of urgency on the defensive side. There was a bit of a different game plan change. Mikhail McLean, one of the assistant coaches, drew up the game plan for that one. Mark Pope gave him a shout out as well for that. We'll be talking a little bit about some of the stuff that we can at least assume was baked into that game plan. That'll be part of our breakdown here tonight or today. And then the offensive side as well. Zoom actions, man. They're back. Our namesake is finally back. We kind of touched on it in our rapid reaction after that game, Brandon and I did. And we're going to go a little bit more in depth on it. Not necessarily just zoom action in general, but like just the idea of putting the ball in Malachi's hands or moving the ball, kind of a weird phenomenon, I guess, when you pass the ball and move it. Good things tend to happen. Yeah, so like there was some good cutting, good ball movement. The ball moves other sides of the floor pretty regularly. So it was a very much a feel-good game for Kentucky. They needed it in the worst way possible to avoid going 0-3 in the SEC for the first time in like 60 years or whatever it was. I think Steven has that stat. But before we dive into everything, let's give a shout out to our sponsor. Instead of actually reading the entire URL like I did last week, I'm just going to say the name of the website so I don't sound like a dum-dum. But we are sponsored today by My Old Kentucky Home Repair, proudly serving the Bluegrass region since 2008. My Old Kentucky Home Repair offers handyman services, home repairs, remodels, and more. Head to their website, myoldkyhomerepair.com, to learn more or give them a call at 859-940-3376. My Old Kentucky Home Repair is your partner for any home project. Maria made a joke to me when she sent me this ad read. She said, maybe they can repair our team too. And I think they did, at least going into this game. Yes, good joke from Maria, and it ended up working as well. So Kentucky did find a little bit of a repaired offensive and defensive system against Mississippi State. Brandon, we're going to start here. I think we're going to start with we both picked an offense and a defensive play from this game. So we'll have 4 total clips to share with you all. We're going to start with Brandon's 2. We're going to start with his offensive clip, which is basically a ball movement clip, which I know Brandon will be able to decipher it a little bit better once we tag it along here. But I'm just going to go ahead and start playing it, and let's just hope to God nothing bad happens like it did a couple weeks ago when we were trying to live stream this. Like, let's keep some fingers crossed. That's why I actually have Steven on here today in the broadcast in case anything goes wrong. So if it does, leave the comments like y'all did last time, and we'll try and figure it on the fly like we did. Just we'll hope that doesn't happen. But so here we go. We'll set the stage. Kentucky already down 10, like we said, early in this game. The first 10 minutes of it were not pretty. But here's kind of the moment where the offense at least started to click a little bit more. So I'm just going to let this play run a little bit. A lot of it, this is a run through Brandon Garrison more than Malachi here, but there was more of an added emphasis on moving the ball through the bigs a little bit better. But it's just easy ball movement. Ball goes from one side of the floor to the other. Cam Williams gets himself into a position where he can get himself an open 3. Bing, bang, boom. Kentucky has 3 points on the board. And this is kind of the start. They might actually get down maybe 10 or 11 again after this. But this was the start of where the offense at least started to pick things up a little bit. So, Brandon, I'm going to let first of all, you can say hello. And then you can put your coach hat on and take us through this play.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. But, yes, this was a play that got me thinking like, okay, I think we're going to see some good things from Kentucky offensively today. And there's a couple reasons for that. First off, you do get at least the structure of zoom action here. Now, like the basketball dictionary definition of zoom action is a down screen into a handoff. But it's all, if you pause it right here, it's also kind of a concept. Like,
right.
Kentucky was
you can
looking.
Freestyle.
Yeah, Kentucky was looking to get to zoom action there. Denzel Aberdeen was going to down screen for Cam Williams. He was going to come off of Brandon Garrison's handoff. But obviously, there's also a defense out there, so you have to take what they give you and sort of read and react off of that. Mississippi State was generally throughout the game, and this was one of the first looks at it, they were really overplaying Kentucky on the perimeter, especially a shooter like Cam Williams. They wanted to make him back cut, make him play inside of the 3-point line. So obviously, you see here Cam Williams back cut and just go to the other side of the floor, which we'll get to in a second. But what I really liked here was how I feel like earlier in the season, Kentucky got so bogged down offensively in that first read on that first side of the floor, where maybe you would try to run some offense, maybe you even trying to get into zoom action, but then as soon as it wasn't there, it was like this collective, oh shoot, what do we do now? And I think that here you saw Brandon Garrison. He gave it a 1 count, maybe a 2 count, but then he turns around and reverses the ball. That is really what ends up making this possession. It's not that they did anything outstanding offensively. Like all this was trying to run offense on one side of the floor, quite frankly, it not working, and then just changing sides to the other side of the floor. There's absolutely nothing flashy. This isn't like some intricate set play. This is just reading and reacting to what Mississippi State gave you. But I really love that Brandon Garrison didn't get bogged down over there. Hey, let's live to fight another day. Let's try to play over here. And because Cam Williams finishes that cut all the way out, back towards the perimeter, if you kind of stop it right there, you can see how his man, because the ball hadn't changed sides of the floor yet, his man kind of stops in there at the midline to be in help side defense, as a lot of people are taught to do. Now, I wouldn't want to do that off of Cam Williams, but teams make mistakes also, and then they try to kind of communicate the switch here last second. They realize, oh crap, the ball is getting reversed pretty quickly, and you get Cam Williams a wide open 3-point attempt, quite literally just off of a ball reversal. Like there's not a bunch of screening here. There's not, a paint touch and a drive and kick. It is just genuinely a ball reversal that gets Cam Williams a 3-point shot. And that's something that we've been missing, quite frankly, from this team. Now, is this going to work against Tennessee? Is this going to work against Arkansas? Is this going to work against Alabama? Probably not, but it worked against Mississippi State, and that's at least a start. So I was very happy to see this play sort of set the tone for Kentucky's ball movement, for their pacing in the half court, the way they shared the ball. This was a really good clip, I thought, to showcase how simple offense can be if you just don't let yourself get stuck in the mud on one side of the floor.
Well, and the last episode we did was the post-Alabama, kind of diagnosis of that, which was not pretty. But one of the main themes of that entire episode, where we talked for 65 minutes about the first 4.5 minutes of the game, was they had one ball reversal, which was like the very opening play of the game. I think it ended in a bucket for them or something like that, or maybe free throws. I kind of forget off the top, but that was the only ball reversal of the entire first 4.5 minutes, and then they ended up getting points out of it. And we just didn't really see that much at all in that entire Alabama game in general. And then here you see it right here, just something as easy as moving the ball from one side of the floor gets yourself open. And this kind of set this tone, like it set the tone for Kentucky, like you were saying, but it helped set the tone for Cam Williams as well, who was not just only shooting threes in this game, but like for the first time I felt all season was getting downhill.
He was aggressive. He played very aggressively offensively,
making a point for himself to get into the lane and get into the paint. It wasn't always pretty. Like I know he definitely had at least one turnover, maybe like missed a shot as well. But like in general, when a 6'8" guy with a 7-foot wingspan is bullying his way into the rim, typically good things can happen. So he was doing a lot of that, and I thought getting himself a good look for three helped set the tone for the defense of Mississippi State, saying, okay, we got to make sure we're out on him. And then that allowed him to get a little bit more space going inside and working his way into the paint. Brandon, one thing I do want to ask you here is, do you think that Mississippi State was maybe expecting Colin Chandler to cut here, and maybe that's why they do this weird kind of half switch here thing, or was this more of like just a defensive mishap here from Mississippi State? Just what do you see from their end, at least, so we can try and provide a little more context?
I think a couple of things. One, Mississippi State is very conservative defensively, and I kind of use the word soft, not in a derogatory, like not physically strong way, but soft in that like they're going to play off of you. They want to protect the paint. They're not going to be aggressive in terms of getting out and pressuring the ball, getting into the passing lanes, things like that. So like the way that you see Cam Williams defender sort of stop at the midline there, like that's just part of their defensive philosophy. Like I'm not gonna go all the way out there on the weak side to the shooter. And then again, because that ball did end up getting reversed maybe a little bit more quickly than what they thought, then you were in a position where it was like, oh shoot, now I have to close that space. That's why, my philosophy would be stay tighter to the shooter no matter where the ball is, because I don't want to be in those situations. But those are, very genuinely just different philosophies. And quite frankly, you've seen teams win a lot of games doing, both of these different things. It's not even necessarily about right or wrong. Probably my funny answer to your question would be, if I was an opponent, I wouldn't expect Kentucky to cut really at any point. So I wouldn't have been overly concerned about that, quite frankly. And honestly, like, the serious part of my joking answer there is like, I also wouldn't have expected us to get the ball reversed like this either. So like that's why I think Mississippi State probably felt like they could be ultra conservative. They could be that soft kind of just, hey, let's pack the paint. That's what Missouri did, quite frankly. Like, Missouri just wasn't guarding Mo Diabate and some of these other guys for Kentucky. They were putting like 5 feet in the paint on every drive, or 10 feet in the paint on every drive. Like they were really making it hard and saying, hey, we don't think that you guys will share the ball well enough or shoot the ball well enough to make us pay. And we just did it at a higher level against Mississippi State than we did against Missouri, and we were able to make them pay for it. So yeah, I don't think there was really even a mishap here for Mississippi State. It was just the fact that Kentucky actually was able to make them pay for what their defensive game plan is and was.
And it resulted in a 3-pointer, so we'll take it every time. And
shoot them all, baby.
Shoot them all, especially Cam Williams, man. Yeah, shoot them all. We were going to go offense, defense, but since we have the lower third there talking about the offense, I'm going to go just straight into the offensive play that I picked, Brandon, here, which is going to say, I think all of our plays actually stick in the first half of this game. And this is Malachi. Well, I'll set the stage by saying that Malachi had, I'd say, pretty easily his best game, considering the circumstance and the opponent, his best game as a Wildcat. Yeah. The numbers that he were putting up, they were only numbers that had been done by guards at Kentucky. Like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was one who had like a 17 and 8 and 6 type game with so many steals or whatever. Because Malachi did have, let me pull it up here just so I have it correct.
6 assists, 4 steals.
6 assists, 4 steals, 8 rebounds. Guess how many of those rebounds were offensive?
6.
6 offensive rebounds.
Brandon Ramsey doesn't guess Zack. He knows.
Yeah, that's true. It's more of a hey, answer. Let's both sound smart here. Answer my question for me. But 17 points, 8 for 10 shooting. He was just awesome in his 28 minutes. And part of it, I think, was just him kind of going back into a role that he was a little bit more comfortable with at the beginning of the season, starting, or at least after Brandon Garrison, him and those two kind of flipped their roles a little bit. But it just felt like Malachi was a little bit more comfortable. And Mark Pope made a point in his press conference earlier today saying that the game was asking for Kentucky to run more through Malachi. I don't know if it wasn't asking for that in other games or what the case was, but at least against Mississippi State, that's what Pope saw, so he decided to give him the ball more. And one thing I've noticed about Malachi that we've watched him so far this season is he might be a freshman, but the kid acts like a leader. Like he's very big on helping his teammates at middle of games, like pointing things out, telling guys where to go. Mark Pope pointed that out as well during his press conference today, talking about how one of his teammates didn't finish the back end of an action on a cut, and Malachi was telling him, like, hey, like at this point, you got to go there. So I think he's a very smart, vocal basketball player, but that's just kind of a side point to the entire great game that he had overall, I thought, on both ends of the floor. But this is, and actually, Brandon, I didn't notice this exact, because I picked this play after I saw your film stuff on Twitter. So I know that you have likened this to the grenade call. That is something that we talked about a little bit more. Maybe we talked about it in the Purdue game or something like that, or maybe a little bit more last season. But that was something that we'd seen before, was this grenade type action. So I'm going to let it play here. This is actually a double. This is a 2-for-1 here. There's 2 plays here. But this is like just good, easy offense here. Like Kentucky gets themselves into a 3-man game here on the side. Jasper Johnson comes down to do a little bit of, not even necessarily zoom action because it's a different setup, but the grenade action, like you were saying, Brandon, on Twitter, gets into just an easy dump-off pass here from Malachi to Ortega, who was great finishing the ball against Mississippi State. We can't always say that about Ortega, but he was excellent at finishing on Saturday for some easy points there. So before I let this go into the next play here, which is really quick after, it bleeds into the defensive talk we're going to do. Brandon, both of us picked this play, so we obviously liked it. What did you see out of this one that really stood out for you?
It it was getting to that grenade action. It's sort of a cousin of Zoom. It's essentially Zoom, but off of the block instead
Hmm.
of the wing. Obviously you see where Malachi Moreno gets his catch there, and then the grenade part of it is sort of how Jasper Johnson's blowing up that defender. It's sort of like the football,
Yeah.
rub play, or whatever you want to call it, where it's sort of an illegal screen, but you're not going to call it because you're not really screening. You're just running by the guy.
Hmm.
And what I liked was like the number of different execution points you have here. Like obviously you had a great feed into Malachi Moreno, then the timing between Jasper and Ortega was really good. You throw the ball to Ortega, like if they would have really stepped in to take that away, I liked that Modi Abate was cutting along the baseline. You easily could have probably dumped it off or lobbed it up to him for a finish. So you really executed every part of this play, even some of those little intricacies that you didn't even need here. So it was just another example of Kentucky actually executing some real offense that just hadn't been executed up to this point, especially against the better teams on Kentucky's schedule. And then, like you said, you have Otega Owe finishing there. I mean, he was 8 of 13 from 2-point range on Saturday. I'm trying to get his. It'll take me too long to get his layup numbers pulled up here, but I'm sure he was much better than normal in
He had a
that
couple of fast
category.
break dunks that help pad
Well,
that stat a little bit too,
that does
but that's
help.
part of it,
Yeah.
like
Well,
get
exactly.
yourself in good
You gotta get
opportunities.
those shots. So yeah, I'm glad that you picked this play because it was something I highlighted on Twitter as well. Just, I mean, I had a whole video on my YouTube channel after the Missouri game talking about the lack of execution, where it's like these little timing issues or just some of the details for Kentucky offensively where they just cannot execute offense, and they executed at such a higher level on Saturday. So that was good to see some day-to-day improvement
Hmm.
there in between what was a very disappointing, certainly final 4 or so minutes against Missouri to a pretty darn exciting last 30 minutes or so against Mississippi State.
Yeah, and Malachi was just very much involved in a lot of this stuff. Um, I don't know if it just helped that it was just him that he didn't have to worry about, like fighting for minutes with Jaden Quaintance or anything like that. He just felt like maybe he was a little bit more comfortable and confident, but the game really did run a lot through him. Like it was
Mm-hmm.
noticeable in the first half where you're like, man, just the zoom actions, like they keep happening. Like there was a couple of plays I remember watching on film where they did like the zoom action. The first time they ran it, it didn't work. So guess what they did? They reversed the floor and they ran zoom action again. So they just it felt like it was very much a point of emphasis going into this game to try and not necessarily run things through Malachi in particular, but get to more of their actions and just things that they know that they can flow into pretty easily. And it resulted in a lot of plays like this. Like I said, Malachi, 6 assists, led the team in assists, 21 assists to 9 turnovers for Kentucky, one of their better assist to turnover ratios. I think that was actually. Yeah, Pope even said it. So 21 assists was their most against a high major opponent this season. The previous high was 15 or 14. I think one of those 15 or 14 was against Missouri. So, if Kentucky doesn't completely blow it in the last 4 minutes of that Missouri game, and then they have this same product here that we saw on Saturday night, like we could be feeling a little bit different about this team, at least in terms of their offensive system, because it feels like things are trending a little bit better, at least on paper, looking at that Mississippi State game in general, but we'll see if it actually sticks and continues. But yeah, good stuff there. And now we're going to flow into some defensive stuff because the defense was honestly just as good as the offense, if not better. So Mississippi State had 68 points. That was their second fewest of the season. One of my favorite numbers from this game. Well, they held Josh Hubbard to like a bad shooting mark, and same with Jaden Epps, but only 23 pointers for Mississippi State. And that's something I'll talk about as we go along here, but only 23 pointers for Mississippi State. That was their second fewest attempts of the entire season as well. So I thought Kentucky did a really good job of how they were of their actual game plan of defending Mississippi State. And we'll talk about more about that actually on this very play right here. So this is after Malachi dishes off to Otega out of the grenade action for an easy bucket. We flow right into the defense here, and this was what changed, Burden. And I know you probably noticed it immediately, but the hard hedges, especially from Malachi Moreno, was really, at least from my view, that was the main difference in the defensive game plan. I'm sure you probably saw some other stuff that changed as well, but on these pick and rolls, on these ball screens, like Pope said in his pre-Mississippi State press conference that Mississippi State is one of the most high usage ball screen teams in the country with their guards. They love to get into ball screens. That's what they do a bunch. So Pope's counter to that was to hard hedge, or Mikael McLean's, I should say, was to hard hedge. So, boom, immediately you jump out here. And teams do this a lot to Kentucky, it felt like, as well, and usually have success. So it was nice to see Kentucky actually do it to another team. This is just Malachi Moreno being a really smart basketball player. Hard hedges out there, pokes the ball away from Josh Hubbard. And then to finish this shot, it's pretty incredible for a 7-footer that weighs 700 or not 700 pounds, 250 pounds. Really, it really was impressive. If he played 700 pounds, that'd be more impressive. But this kind of will get into the rest of our hard hedging segments that we're going to talk about here. But this kind of was just the appetizer of what we saw for a lot of this game from Kentucky, and it resulted in a lot of easy baskets, a lot of transition points. I think 19 fast breaks for Kentucky was one of their highest of the season. And it started with Malachi doing a lot of stuff like that. And Brandon Garrison, I feel like, did a decent amount too. So, but Brandon, we'll dive into your defensive play here while I scrub around and find it on O-Ball. So this is, let's see here. Do I have it marked down? I don't have it marked down exactly what happens here, but
it's just more Malachi Moreno hard hedging. So
more Malachi hard hedging. There you go.
Right on cue.
So, right off the bat there. I think he actually ends up doing it twice, if I recall correctly. So really good recovery, and I feel like that's a big key to a lot of this is being able to recover off those hard hedges, and he did a good job of that. I feel like Kentucky did a good job of staying home on the shooters. That was at least a point that I saw as well. So that helped when. Wait, Brendan, before we go on, can you tell me what is the greater number, 3 or 2?
3 is greater than 2.
3 is greater than 2. So Kentucky decided to use that to their advantage and decided to shut off some of the three-pointers. Like I said, only 20 attempts for Mississippi State. And they said, if you want to try and beat us through these like tight passes into the middle and get shots at the hoop and stuff like that, go ahead, by all means. You can try and beat us there. Or Josh Hubbard, you can try and isolate your way into a win here. And they weren't able to do either of those things very successfully at all. So as we let this play continue on here, another ball screen for Mississippi State, another hard hedge for Malachi Moreno, and this time he's able to just use his body without fouling, which he's very good at, and push, I think that's Jaden Epps, number 10 for them.
That is correct.
And just go right out of bounds for an easy turnover. So, Brandon, I know that's why you love this play, but tell us, let's just let it run. You tell me what you loved about this thing.
I love how active Malachi Moreno was in this game, and I loved the game plan. I talked about it in my scouting report, and I thought you need to be more aggressive to take away these guards from three-point range. And if you can go back to the start of the play, Zach, I have one thing I want to point out here. I'll try to get you to pause it when I want. Keep it rolling. Right now, pause. Part of what makes this play work is Jasper Johnson here coming down to tag on the roll. It's like it would be a much easier pass if you can throw it to number 15. Let's see, that's Quincy Ballard, number 15 there near the free throw line.
He shoots 70% from the field, by the way.
Yeah, so if you throw it to that guy and he can just take a dribble and go dunk it on your head, then that's a lot higher percentage than having to throw just such a long pass. And like part of it, like it doesn't matter who that guy is over there coming up to the perimeter. That's such a long pass. It gives you time to recover while the ball is in the air as a defender. So now take it another beat, Zach, and like let the ball travel to the wing. Now, like as that's happening, you can see Jasper's able to go close out, and Malachi, by the time the ball is on the wing, Malachi is in position to guard his man again. So like by being aggressive, by making them pick it up, 30 plus feet from the basket, they're this long pass back to the open teammate. You're able to cover everything up on the backside, and that's what Kentucky did well. Not just their bigs getting out there and being really aggressive on the ball, but I thought Kentucky's kind of backside rotation deserves some credit in this game as well, because that's the only way that you can successfully hard hedge is if you have that backside rotation, because it puts you in those situations. That's why it isn't necessarily something that can work in every game. Like if you try to hard hedge the ball screens against Alabama, now maybe they make less threes on the ball. Maybe it's not LeBaron Philon, and maybe it's not Aiden Holloway like pulling up off the dribble making the threes. Maybe you can take them away, but they're so much more dangerous in rotation because they have shooters all over the floor, so they can keep passing it and kind of stay in one rotation ahead of you as a defense. So I know a lot of us, myself very much included, are excited about the defensive execution against Mississippi State. I would caution everybody, though, to this isn't necessarily like, oh, well, Kentucky's figured out what they need to do defensively. Now,
Right.
do I think that Brandon Garrison can be really good hard-hitting ball screens? Do I think Andre Yelovich, do I think Malachi Moreno can be really good in those situations? And putting yourself in rotation, does that maybe allow you to lean into your athleticism a little bit more? Yes, I think it can be a part of what Kentucky does. Probably something that you need to see Kentucky do more of, because quite frankly, I'm not sure if we've had a game in Mark Pope's tenure where like what you did was hard hedge the ball screens. Like this probably was the one example in Coach Pope's tenure where this was just what you did as the game plan. So it worked to a T. And I loved, like I said, the backside rotation here. I loved Malachi Moreno getting out, as you mentioned, without fouling and forcing the turnover here. It was actually the only non-steal turnover of the game. Kentucky forced 15 turnovers, 14 steals. When you have those live ball turnovers, that's how you're able to really dominate. I think it was like 27-10 in points off of turnovers or something like that. And it was a dominant performance in that area. That's how you start blowing some teams out, is when you're able to turn teams over. And by being more aggressive, you do that. And that's something we've all kind of wanted to see a little bit more, is like, hey, this team's super athletic. How about we try to force more turnovers? How about we gamble a bit more defensively? I mean, there were points in the year where things weren't exactly going well as they were. So maybe let's at least try to, dictate the pace of the game and the way things go a little bit more. We certainly saw that against Mississippi State on Saturday.
And I'm glad you just brought that up, because one of the things I did notice while watching this game was, at least from the defensive perspective, was the reason that was able to work a little bit better was because Mississippi State's bigs can't really shoot the ball. Or at least not threats to be guys that can shoot the ball.
Some of their guards can't shoot the ball either.
Yeah, so it just made it easier to, at least in Jasper's instance here, like he's able to lay off his guy a little bit more, knowing that that's a tough pass to make. But you've got I think it's Cam over here, like when the ball gets to the strong side here, like he's staying with his guy, like just making it a little bit easier to defend on that side. And then by the time the ball's whipped over there, it's just hard to get those passes in, and you don't have a guy out there that can just fire off those deep shots. So like you're saying, going forward, like could this same game plan work against other teams? Maybe, but it might just be, that it might be a personnel based situation for Kentucky's defense, knowing against who they're going up against. And obviously it worked in this one because Mississippi State doesn't have, or at least their shooters they're not their bigs for sure. And they're like, mainly it was just Josh Hubbard.
Their shooters are their ball handlers. That's why it worked so perfectly. That you're able to make these guys give it up. You're able to make these guys pick it up. Like I posted, I think 4 screenshots on Twitter the other day of just some different points where Mississippi State had to pick the ball up throughout the game. And we're talking about them playing out like at the half court circle, where Josh Hubbard, number 12, and number 10, Jaden Epps, like these guys are picking the ball up legitimately 35, 40 feet from the basket on a given possession. And again, yes, hard hedging kind of leaves somebody open on the backside, but when you're having to make those passes, especially over a 7-footer like Malachi or Yelovich or Garrison, you give yourself time to figure it all out, and that's what Kentucky did so well in this game.
I'm just going to let this run through one more time, just because it was nice to see.
It is. It's very nice.
It's just good defense, and he gets excited, gets the whole crowd going. This is right in the middle of Kentucky. Look at Jason Hart there. Who says the assistant coaches don't get excited? Who says that?
I was thinking the same darn thing when I watched this. I was like, man,
Jason
out
Hart and Mikhail McLean were very much into this game, to their credit. I don't know if Cody Feger, Mark Fox, and Alvin Brooks have ever so much as cracked a smile on the bench before, but Jason Hart and Coach McLean were very much into this game. So shout out to them. And if you're Coach McLean, I'd be into this game too. Hell, you drew up the defensive game plan and held Mississippi State to 68 points.
And that stuff matters. Like, I mean, when it's your scout, like you do take a lot of pride in that game, especially for a younger coach who he's not one of like the core assistant coaches even. I mean, he's a little bit further down the bench. For him to have a game plan like this, and I'm sure he was not feeling very good about himself to begin the game. So I like to be able to showcase like, hey, no, I'm confident in my game plan. We just got to keep grinding this, and then to have the outcome that it did. Like, yeah, he should have been juiced up on the sidelines because he had a great game plan, and it's I can speak from experience, not in Rupp Arena, but in my own little Division III world. Like, it is a very, very good feeling when it's your scout and you kind of start dominating the opponent, because once you stop competing as a player, it's like the most competitive thing you can do as a human is like, my game plan was better than yours.
Yeah.
So, and
well,
he got that feeling on Saturday.
And Pope pointed that out as well in his post-game press conference. He said, for Mikhail was very adamant. Like, even when things were going poorly in the first 8-10 minutes, Mikhail was like, let's stick to it. And he was very strong-headed in saying, let's stick to it. Pope trusted in his assistant, and it ended up paying off for him. So, and I think, like, when I watched back that first half or those first 10 minutes, like, man, Mississippi State, they were hitting some, like, just some isolation buckets, some tough shots where it's like, all right, if you're going to try, like I said, if Josh Hubbard wants to try and isolate you to death all game, like, by all means, you can try and have him go do that. Like, it basically won him the game against Texas or whoever they played in overtime or whatever it was. But,
I'm glad you mentioned that. We don't need to get into the weeds too much there. But, yeah, the start of the game wasn't the all systems failure that the scoreboard would say that it was. Like, I remember when I started to rewatch the game, there's one time Ortega got lost and Hubbard made a three. And then actually there was a couple times, I think there was twice, where Mo Diabate kind of made a bad decision kind of helping up around the rim, and it gave up a baseline dunk both times. But, and I mean, I guess you can say, well, geez, Brandon, you're saying 3 defensive miscues in the first 5 minutes isn't that bad. Like, okay, yeah, I get it. But, it wasn't like we weren't just like rolling over and letting them dominate the game. It was that they were executing some things. We had a couple miscues, and we couldn't score there for the first 5 minutes or so. And once that got fixed, it was a lot better. But yes, the scoreboard made you think like, well, here we go again. But I think that Coach McLean and the other guys were probably like, hey, no, like I actually think that this is going to end up working out. We just gotta play through it a little bit.
And something I didn't even mention off the top was Jalen Lowe got hurt 3 minutes into this game, swiping down on trying to steal a ball. Immediately goes to the locker room, so he's out like maybe 3 minutes into the game. He's done. Pope said today that it's just going to continue to be a game-by-game management thing, so we'll see what happens there. No Jaden Quaintance as well. His knee was sore, swelling up a bunch, so he didn't play. So Kentucky was down essentially 2 starters in this one and still found a way to overcome that slow start. So I don't know what's the deal with the slow starts is. Like, it's not the injuries. It's not like I don't even know what to point to anymore. This team just doesn't seem to lock in until we're 8 or 10 minutes into the game, and then by that point, sometimes it's just too late. So, still have no idea what the issue is there, but we can go ahead and move on to our last defensive play, actually, or our last clip of this entire game, or the game here that we're going to talk about. So this was the one that I picked. This was like a full 30-second or maybe like a 25-second defensive play here from Kentucky. Really good stuff. There was a very good Colin Chandler moment in here that I know that you're going to be happy to see about, Brandon. So I'll just let this play out and I'll kind of narrate as it goes along here. But one of the main things that stood out to me here was I think, did we get another hard hedge? I'm not entirely sure. Colin Chandler. Look at my guy going over some ball screens here, and I believe he does it again in this very same play, where the ball gets moved back out here. They call for another screen. Instead of you get a hedge there, Colin Chandler goes over the screen as well. So they had to move the ball back, and then Cam Williams just says, "I'm bigger and stronger than you," and they have the ball go out of bounds. So I loved this defensive play. This was part of Kentucky's last 10 minutes of the first half comeback where they were just kind of onslaughting Mississippi State at this point. But there was a few different players like Colin, Cam, and Malachi I thought really did good jobs here. And we can let it play one more time, Brandon, and then I'll let you kind of narrate your thoughts as well. I'm going to see if there's anything else that I didn't notice that first time around. Some good ball screen defense. Again, continue movement. Great job from Cam there again. Andrea's staying close to his man, doing a good job. Colin Chandler going over the screen on a shooter, whips the ball out. Not enough time left on the clock. A guy gets overwhelmed and just fumbles it out of bounds. So I guess they counted that as a steal for Cam Williams then, right?
I wouldn't, but I guess
something.
Or they gave Moreno one for that last one that I was talking. Yeah, because
Yeah.
Those are two balls that went out of bounds, and yeah,
Whatever. We don't care.
sure.
As long as that final score looks in Kentucky's favor, that's fine. So, Brandon, I'm going to let this run through, and you can start and stop me as you go, stuff that you liked.
Yeah, so rewatching it there a couple of times. One of the things I want to actually talk about here is Andrea Jelovich, since you didn't
Let's do
mention
it.
that part of this play. Because, yeah, I mean, this is really all five guys doing a good job. Right now, pause it. Look at where Jelovich is. His man is number 99 here in the corner.
Yeah, Achor. Non-shooter.
Yeah, and again, this is a benefit of playing Mississippi State that has some guys like this. Not every team has dudes that you just don't have to guard. I mean, again, this is what Missouri was doing to Kentucky on Wednesday, where if this was Mo Diabate, their defender was where Jelovich is. Like, hey, I don't care about that dude. I'm going to come kind of muck things up, clog things up here in the paint. So we did a really good job of just making sure that, hey, if anybody rolls to the basket, if anybody cuts, I'm going to be right here, right here to cover it all up. And then as the play goes on, he does it again. We'll see in probably 5 to 10 seconds. Great, right here. If you pause it one more time, great job by Cam Williams. This is him being 6'8", like that.
Yeah,
This is where his length and size makes such a difference. That guy drives it in there, and you just can't get it over him. Like there was no chance of him scoring because he moves his feet so well. Then he walls up and he's so tall and long. Like, well, we're not going to get anything done against this dude. So now they just have to kick it back out. You are right, Zach. Watching Colin go over that screen early and then doing it again here with a nice little hard hedge, that was certainly good to see. But then maybe go one more beat and pause it. Yep,
he is wide open. Oh my gosh, they didn't care at all about it.
But yeah, I mean, look at where Jelovich is, because I mean, okay. Yeah. We're going to throw it to this guy. Let's see. He's
16% on the season.
Yep, 4 of 25. It's funny. He actually, like 2 years ago at Samford, he actually shot pretty well. He was 26 of 59, 44.1% as a sophomore at Samford. When actually he played for Buckyball, yeah, at Texas A&M now. But yes, this is the sort of, especially when you're hard hedging. This is the defensive rotation that you have to be able to have. And you do sort of have to have guys out there like number 99 that you can afford to just sort of not guard. And that makes defense a heck of a lot easier when you can just go put 2 feet in the paint in the middle of the floor and not worry about some guys out here on the perimeter. But yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot in this video and plenty of other platforms over the last 48 hours about how good Malachi Moreno was. Colin Chandler did a good job on this possession. Obviously, Cam Williams is kind of the star of the show with disrupting things and stopping that first drive, causing the turnover there. But what Jelovich was doing off the ball of just kind of making sure nothing happened in the paint is a really big part of the success of not just this defensive possession, but a lot of defensive possessions. Again, the way that Kentucky rotated pretty darn high level on Saturday.
Yeah, when you look at the numbers, I think Mississippi State still shot 48% or something like that. But again, this was a team they were shooting 70% through the first 8, 9, 10 minutes of this game. So I think a lot of their end result numbers are kind of inflated as well. Like they only shot 39% in the second half, 1 for 13 from 3. Had 8 turnovers, more turnovers than assists in that second half. So that's where you really started to see the numbers shift in Kentucky's favors in that second half. But so I mean, it feels like this is a defense that Kentucky can throw more out there as the season goes along when they're playing teams that have 2-ish non-shooters, maybe 1.5 non-shooters on the floor, especially in an instance like this where you've got Achor who's 4 for 25 from 3. So, like, obviously you're just going to let that guy shoot. I mean, Kentucky fans would say, well, you let that guy shoot, he's going to go 5 for 5 from 3. And sometimes that does happen, like sometimes your game plan is just broken by, outlier numbers. But luckily it wasn't in this case. So, Brandon, we're only at 40 minutes here. So I don't know if there's any, Steven might have been combing through the comments, see if there's anything. And Steven, if there is like a good question or comment or something that you want to bring up, go ahead and throw it up and we'll talk about it for 5-10 minutes before we get out of here. But Brandon, is there anything else from this game, like just from the film here that we can just sit here and talk about? Anything that really stood out to you?
The one thing I would say, and it's something I brought up, I think, on Twitter the other day. I mentioned it on KS Board some today as well, that I think a lot of us, and it's human nature, especially as a fan. Like you always want to seek the big picture answer. A couple of weeks ago, it was smash mouth basketball because that's what worked against Indiana and St. John's. We all felt good, like, oh, hey, maybe we figured something out here. Maybe we're going to be really good defensively. We're going to find, we're going to find just enough offense to win. We're going to offensive rebound the heck out of the ball, and that's going to be our recipe. Then all of a sudden, that didn't work for a couple of games. Well, now it's like we're going to play fast. We're going to shoot some more threes again. We're going to score in the 90s and try to win. And like, I think that for this Kentucky team, that quite frankly just isn't championship caliber, especially with some of the injuries. Like it just is what it is. I think that what you're going to see is that all of those things are going to be true in certain games going forward. I don't think that this Kentucky team, and this stinks. Like, again, this isn't what you want it to be. It's not the standard. It's not worth $22 million, all these different things. But like, this Kentucky team isn't good enough to establish their identity and like let that carry them. I think they need to have game to game identities where, there might be a smash mouth game where you need 22 offensive rebounds and it's ugly and we play like, freaking Buzz Williams and Texas A&M for a weekend. And then there's going to be games where you can go out and you can be aggressive defensively. You can get 15 turnovers. You can make some more threes. And all of a sudden you score 90 points in the game. I think that this Kentucky team is going to have to be very matchup oriented to try to maximize their abilities, because it's simply just not talented enough of a group to be like, hey, this is what we do. This is what we're about. You guys need to adjust to us. It's like, no, actually, we're probably gonna have to be the team doing more adjusting this year and really fighting and clawing to win each of these situational games. So yeah, I think that's something that maybe we've started to really learn here early in SEC play, is that, hey, we need to forget about like figuring out the offense, figuring out the defense. It's going to be a game-to-game basis as to what works.
Yeah, and it would be nice to have a game to game or like a real identity that you can just kind of lean on and everything, but there could be something said about being able to win in different ways, and maybe that can help you as the season goes along, especially, they still got 15 more games, 15 more regular season games. So that's a lot of basketball left to, if not necessarily find that identity, but at least learn how to win through different identities on a game-to-game basis, like you're saying there. But one thing I will point out, and this was something that I found from going through my CBB analytics account. Love they got really just like in-depth numbers and things that are fun to look at. But one thing I did notice, and I wrote about it, and I might just have to pull off the top of my head, but half-court offense. In the first 8 high major games, that includes Gonzaga, Kentucky's half-court offense was shooting 36.4% or 34.6% from the field. That was just their half-court offense in general. Against Mississippi State, they shot 46% in half-court settings. So that's about a 12 percentage point difference. That's only one game, but it definitely felt like the way that they were getting into their actions, everything felt a little bit more like last year. At least in terms of how they were able to generate their looks. Like 9 for 22 was the best this team has shot against a high major team since Louisville from deep. So there were positives to take away, and at least by the numbers, like I'm pretty sure. Let me actually just double check this before I say it, but I'm pretty positive that Mississippi State is a better defensive team by the numbers than Missouri. Hold on, I'm trying to look it up on the fly, and I got to put in my email because Ken Palm doesn't.
Yes. So. Missouri is actually 103 in Ken Palm adjusted defensive efficiency, and Mississippi State is 67th.
Boom. So there you go. So you had better offense against a better defensive team is kind of the point I was trying to make there. So, and like Brandon was saying, this team is still not a title contender. They're still very much on the bubble right now. Like that was only just a quad 3 win. So it's obviously better to win those than to lose those. But it was a positive step. So we'll see how it goes. They got LSU on the road on Wednesday. I think they're projected to actually lose that game by the numbers. I think so, yeah. 77-76 is what Ken Palm has. I'm sure the line will be a little bit in favor of LSU because it's on the road there. Alan Metz, sorry, I can't say your name there, but we had 22 assists. Kentucky had 22 assists against Mississippi State. That was their, easily, like I said earlier, that was easily their highest against a high major team of the season. So yeah, it Saturday night was fun. It was a lot of fun. It's fun to actually win basketball games. It doesn't take away from the fact that they're still far, far below the expectations of kind of where we had this team set at the beginning of the season. There was one comment in here that I wanted to kind of point out. This one right here. This team has lowered my expectations, so I don't go too up or too down with them. I think that's fair. I think that's perfectly fair to be, as from a fan perspective, is maybe don't get too high thinking about a 24-point win, but so you don't get crushed on the the next games if something bad happens. But the Saturday night was fun, so we're not gonna take away any from that game in particular. But I think that's gonna be all we've got, unless Brandon, you've got anything else you want to sneak in here. Steven, if you're behind the camera and you've got a comment you want to make.
Nothing on my end. We got 2 big road games coming up here this week. You have to win at LSU, especially because you lost against Missouri. Like, that's now because it's not easy to win on the road in the SEC or in conference play in general. That's as winnable of a road game as you're going to play. In fact, just looking at KenPom, I mean, LSU's 40 in KenPom. The only lower ranked team we play on the road is 41, Texas A&M. So, like, you're kind of looking at those two as, hey, we need to win these 2 road games, and then you don't have to win.
You get South Carolina on the road too.
Oh, I missed that one. Okay. Oh yeah, there you go, 71. But and then you don't have to win at Tennessee, but like at some point you do need some legitimate quality wins like that. Again, especially because you lost to Missouri. So we'll see how it goes. But I think that this team, I mean, it was like what the comment was. I mean, it's not. It's a fool's errand to project too far to the future with this team. We don't even know who's going to be playing in the games half the time, and then secondly, you just don't know exactly what you're going to get out of them. And again, that's frustrating. But I also think in frustrating seasons, even as Kentucky fans with the crazy expectations that we have at times, like you have to celebrate the wins when they come. Like, it's really hard to win college basketball games. To me, 2 things can be true. Like, you can enjoy Saturday night and enjoy beating Mississippi State while also realizing it doesn't change the season. Like,
right.
I think you should be able to compartmentalize things well enough to have some fun in the moment, but realize, all right, hey, like, we still got a heck of an uphill battle for this season, but at least tonight I'm going to celebrate and have some fun. And hopefully we have some more celebrate and have fun nights and some more positive Zoom action episodes with Zack and I going forward, but we shall see how it goes.
Yeah, we shall see for sure. So 2 straight road games, LSU on Wednesday, then Tennessee on Saturday. Jack, Steven, and I will actually be in Knoxville for that game on Saturday, nice. So hopefully we can go down there and bring us back a win. But otherwise, folks, thanks everyone for joining along on this 2:30 start for a Monday afternoon. Hopefully we gave you a little bit to distract yourself with from work. But otherwise, folks, we will catch you next week, and hopefully we're talking about some more wins again. If not, we'll be back here anyways, because we love talking about basketball, and it doesn't really matter. So thank you all again. We'll talk to y'all soon.
Peace.
Thanks.